Hi, folks. Ryan Honeyman here from Lift Economy. Many folks have come to us over the last 10 years and asked, how do I get more involved in creating an economy that works for the benefit of all life? They also ask, what skills and experiences do I need to help make this transition? So 3 years ago, we created something called the Next Economy MBA to help address this and similar questions. Lift Economy's Next Economy MBA is an online course that's designed for entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, students, recent graduates, employees, and folks who want to learn more about transformational next economy strategies and businesses. Join the growing alumni network of nearly 250 alumni who've gone through this program and learned essential skills and hopefully built lifelong relationships for catalyzing businesses in the emergent and regenerative economy. So we encourage you to check out our course. You can go to lifteconomy.com/MBA. The next course, Cohort 7, starts on September 21st, 2021. So once again, go to www.lifteconomy.com/MBA. And now, on with the show. Welcome to Next Economy Now. The goal of this podcast series is to highlight the leaders who are taking a regenerative, bioregional, equitable, democratic, racially just, and whole systems approach to creating the new economy.
Thanks for joining us, Ahmed.
Thank you, Kevin, for having me.
I would love to start by, if you would, sharing a little bit of the story of how you got Numi Tea started and maybe focusing a little bit on why as well.
Yeah, sure, Kevin. Well, Numi started about 17 years ago in late 1999. The idea came from my sister and I, who were both born in Baghdad, Iraq, and immigrated here to the United States as kids. And, our drink of hospitality in our home country of Iraq is this dried desert lime that in Arabic, well, only in Iraqi language, is called Numi. And, we drink that as our drink of hospitality anywhere you go, like you have green tea in China or yerba mate in Argentina or Coca-Cola here in the U.S. There they serve you this dry desert lime. It's just a pure lime that's sun-dried, and we call it Numi. And it's only drunk in Iraq, and it's used as a spice. This dried lime is used as a spice everywhere throughout the Middle East in cooking, but it's only drunk as a beverage there. And so, we wanted to import it into this country, and it hadn't been brought here. And, my sister and I both had our journeys throughout the world. I had lived in Europe for about 10 years as an artist, and my sister also traveled the world in Europe and U.S. as an artist. And my last 5-6 years in Europe, I spent in Prague, and I opened up tea houses there. And I had also a wholesale business of distributing loose teas to a bunch of tea shops throughout all of Eastern Europe. So long story short, with my tea knowledge, running tea houses and knowing all about teas, and my sister's artistic background, we both came together to say, hey, let's bring this lime to the U.S. and this dry desert lime called Numi, and let's bring some other teas and herbs that really aren't in the marketplace. So I moved back to the U.S. in 99 and checked out the market here in the Bay Area, based in Oakland. That's where my sister was living. And, I noticed there was herbs like rooibos and honeybush that weren't in the market yet that were really popular in my tea houses and in Europe. And I noticed that everyone was putting natural flavorings in their teas, which I didn't understand, these oils and artificial natural flavors that they're putting with mint and then mint flavoring. I didn't really understand it. So I also took a position on just put real ingredients, just put real mint, put real freeze-dried fruits, put real spices and so on. So we took immediately a real cutting advantage to enter and establish ourselves in the marketplace because, most categories are pretty crowded, especially tea, which has been drunk for thousands of years. And it's actually the most consumed beverage in the world after water. How do we cut our teeth and get some space in the market? So I think our innovation really helped. Our purity of ingredients, it's still one of our leading advantages. Everyone still uses natural flavors, which is just lab created. And then, of course, our values of organic and fair trade. Now we're the largest importer of fair trade ingredients into the United States in our short period of time. So those were some of the reasons that we believe that there's an opportunity here with our values. Nobody was doing that then to the degree. It's changed the last 17 years. There's more people doing it, but we were really the first in a major way. And of course, with all these innovative products and real purity of ingredients. And that's kind of stayed our mantra, although it's grown and gotten much deeper. But it's been our true commitments from day one to really bring out a premium, ultra premium tea that's pure ingredients, that's committed to the farmers, and that's committed to the planet.
So you really had a kind of a whole concept from the beginning, in terms of, it wasn't only just having an incredibly high quality product. That was part of it. It's important to look at the quality, kind of a differentiated product that was made from real ingredients from primary producers. But it's you already were considering the welfare of the earth, the welfare of the producers already from the get-go. And obviously you married all of that idea with some aesthetic beauty in terms of how it's presented to the marketplace. So it's kind of like a lot of wholeness from the beginning. At that time, what kind of sense did you have for what the next 5, 10 years? Did you have like a vision and a plan that you've developed that you knew, you recognized there's this niche and this opportunity, but did you have a sense for what things would look like in 10 years? We've talked to different entrepreneurs who do have that sense, and some who kind of got surprised by the timing. Kind of curious how it went for you.
Well, I was personally pretty naive to the U.S. marketplace. I mean, I had done tea work in Europe, but it was very different with tea houses and bulk tea sales. So entering, the Whole Foods and the Targets and the Safeways and all the food service, operators that we worked with from the first, few years, it was a big learning curve because, it's not just in selling in the product, but getting the consumer and the participant to really understand Numi, so how to market the brand. But we quickly realized that, hey, we have something that people want. I mean, they want that purity of ingredients. They want a single ingredient like rooibos or lime or pure mint or a real jasmine green tea. They want that. And you said something that I probably overlooked, which is, we brought it in a way that was very different. It wasn't this commercial looking product. It was an art piece. I mean, my sister's paintings on the front of all the packages, which she got inspired by my photographs because I was a photographer and filmmaker. So she used a lot of my photographs to make the paintings, of my travels around the world. We quickly realized, okay, there's this niche and this wholesome idea that we have created as artists, not as business people, was really capturing the imagination of the shopper and of the tea drinker and of those that might not have drunk tea. So we were really doing something right. So we were able to leverage that and use that for 5 to 10 years until, we sort of changed our packaging after 10 years and went another direction to go deeper into the stories we were doing. But we used the artistic expression. We used the real ingredients. We used the unique and innovative ingredients. And of course, the values kept building. But, after rooibos and honeybush and lime and jasmine and pure black teas that, most of it was just low grade dust or fannings, but using a whole leaf, we said, how do we take that to the next level? So, our innovations continued. We introduced pu'er tea, we introduced flowering tea, we introduced turmeric, we introduced, savory. Some worked, some didn't, but we kept that theme going, in using that innovation and quality and artistic packaging and expression and really creating that Numi culture. From our first year. So we didn't know we don't know what you don't know. And when you're a new brand, you really need to keep your eyes and ears open to how people are receiving it. And we were pretty, I don't want to say lucky, but we were the right time at the right place with our innovation and our quality values and our commitments to people and planet. So
wonderful. I'm curious to know if at Numi, and I'm sure it's been iterative over time, but if you have kind of an expression of those core values and maybe how they are arrived at, there may be a lot of them, and I'm sure on the website we could probably put a link in this podcast when we put it out there so people can review it. But I'm kind of curious about the process of kind of articulating those values, and I can detect them even in the arc of the narrative of where Numi has gone, but I'm curious as to how you articulate it to yourself and to how the team articulates it to itself.
Well, I think there's, obviously the basics of being an agricultural product, which is growing in the earth. It's, to make sure that you're treating the earth with high respect and making sure that everything's organic. Chemicals in the last 50 years is just the pesticides and fertilizers that have been introduced to the earth is just, it's astounding how poor it's gotten in animal treatment.
Mm-hmm.
So I think as an agricultural product, that was first and foremost, is making sure that we're, really committed to organics. 100% of our products are organic. Not all of them were in day one, but today they are. We just needed, time to make sure we can address that. But, soon into our beginning, we made that commitment. And fair trade, that term didn't even really exist when we launched, but we were already committed to it, going and visiting the farmers and understanding their needs. I mean, they used to be surprised 16, 17 years ago when I'd fly over to China or India and ask them what their needs are. And they were like, "You're not coming out here to beat us up on pricing?" I'm like, "No, I can do that over a phone or an email." If that was my intention is to really be here to learn what your needs are and how we can help you and support you, because you're doing all the hard work. So I think the social responsibility was something that, we really need to make a priority in our commitment of creating millions and millions of tea bags. So, and producing all this product, because for us, it's, we believe that every manufacturer is responsible for everything they do. And that's even the waste and sustainability. And, why do you put overwrap on your boxes, a plastic piece of film that you immediately rip off to open the box? It just doesn't make sense. So, using virgin paper, why do you need to use virgin paper when there's so much paper that's being recycled out there? And so, those simple commitments were right from the beginning. And as I mentioned a little earlier, as we grew and our resources grew and our personnel and hiring the people that can help and really hiring those that are really committed to those, it helped us go deeper in that work. And it's evolved. I mean, we have a lot of new programs that we didn't have in the beginning, like our Together for Hope project. It's spelled H2OPE, and it's bringing our farming communities clean water throughout our supply chain. So, we're dealing with communities in China and India and Africa that don't have the basic needs of clean water. So, through the Numi Foundation, in the last 4 or 5 years, we developed a program called Together for Hope, which is bringing all of our farming communities clean water.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Because is that the partnership that's with the Women's Earth Alliance and some other NGOs, or is that another program? Maybe if you could outline a few programs of the foundation, that would be wonderful, and go a little deeper there. I know listeners would be curious to learn about these voluntary commitments and efforts that Numi has endeavored to take on. Curious kind of like also if you could tell a little bit about the genesis of the foundation, like how did that come about?
So my sister and I, we do so much work with our farming communities and put so much resources and financial efforts into helping them. And about 8 years ago, roughly, we wanted to do something beyond that. So we launched the Numi Foundation with our original goal was to bring, as both my sister and I are artists and also care about the planet, we wanted to do some education for children around art and expression, and also around gardening and healthy food and caring for the planet. Our original idea was to develop curriculums and have those be in our home country of Baghdad, Iraq, for all the kids that have been displaced and home without good education, without good homes, just with all the wars and the devastation there over the last 20 years. So our original goal was to do work there, but it's tough to do that kind of international work. And so then we focused on Oakland, and we created some curriculums. We have 3 curriculums. One's about gardening and healthy planet, healthy food. One's about art and how to unleash the artistic expression within yourself, and another's about social studies. They're all experiential learning, kind of like a Waldorf inspired. They're kindergarten through 8th grade, and now we have those curriculums in a lot of Oakland schools, including one school that I helped open called CSCE, Community School for Creative Education, and it's also a Waldorf inspired public charter school. So that was our original concept. And as we've grown it, some other projects have come and gone and woven into it that were more related to Oakland with the local nonprofits and supporting them. And about, again, 3-4 years ago, we said, let's do more. And how can we, go back to our farmers and do more? So the Together for Hope project unraveled, and how can we, help our farmers with some of the basic human rights of clean water? Because, a lot of them just drink dirty river water, don't even understand to boil it. The illnesses that come from it is just, it's high percentages. The amount of time they spend to walk to the rivers to collect the water, and it doesn't let kids go to school. It's a huge, people don't realize that the luxury of having clean water in your own faucet. And then all the plastic bottles people are buying, it's incredible the amount of plastic that's being produced. So, that initiative is a primary focus, along with the school curriculums and getting inner city children the ability to learn beyond just, the basic core, but really things that help them become a whole child.
Wonderful. Yeah. So the foundation kind of seems like it's emerging out of the values, this full consideration of it's interesting because it's almost, if you consider the company as, I don't want to do it a disservice, but as an art project, the company is more than just a transactional way to provide a really high quality good, which it is. But it's from the beginning, you had this kind of whole concept, and the foundation is just a natural outgrowth. It's not like, hey, we have to give back because we've done so well. It's just like, why wouldn't we create these programs as part of the natural course of what the company could do? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seems like there's some of those motivations might have been there, because I'm sure as Numi grew, there must have been people who said, "Ooh, this is a good company to acquire. You're obviously a market leader." There were a lot of copycats and kind of follow on, trying to take some of the messaging, but maybe not with the authenticity of your practices, but trying to borrow or copy the messaging that Numi was putting out into the market. I'd imagine you and your sister maybe were offered, would you like to sell the company? And I'm curious if you can comment on how you've navigated that over the years. And my guess is that it's a full expression of what's possible in terms of your total impact. There's still a lot of room for you to do a lot of the innovation and expression. But I'm curious, did that ever factor in? Did that happen? Does it still happen today?
Yes. I mean, you bring up some good points, Kevin, and I would just highlight 2 or 3 areas within that is, I think, there's so much work any company can do, and it's obviously setting your priorities and setting commitments to it, just like any relationship in life. And I think for us at Numi, there's the Numi Inc., the company, and what we do in our everyday, and how we better that and how we make it stronger externally and internally. So from the whole farmer experience to the supply chain to our staff to the experience in the marketplace, really being true and committed to that, from our values to our company culture to the Numi way to the product. And then the foundation, which is, it's third-party monies. It's a foundation. Numi Inc. isn't giving all the monies for that. So it's finding supporters that want to be a part of this, that want to help us with our initiatives. And, we raise quite a lot of money for these initiatives. And Numi does give some of it. But I think it's trying to find, the holistic approach without distracting us from also running a business, because we still have to run a business and make our profits and pay our employees and all the things that go along with it. And, as we've grown, there's always interest, and we get knocks at the door, and we want to be kind and say thank you. And I'm always interested in it. I don't think, that's not our path at this time. It's not where we want to go is to sell the company. However, these people can help us. These people have money and they can help us on the foundation side. They might help us with partnerships. Like we created a partnership with a large company that wanted to license our brand, and that's a coffee company, but they wanted to license it in another format for Numi. And we also just created a new partnership with quite a large company, an $8 billion company that wanted to use the Numi brand in the iced tea bottles. And we said, that's great. We would love to, if we do it in glass and we make sure it's all organic and it's all fair trade, you can use the brand, you have the distribution. So, because at the end of the day, the more tea we buy, the more we participate in helping our farming communities, the more organics we're creating, the more sustainable and social supply chain, and the more impact we have. So, I think these larger companies, when it makes sense, we want to definitely partner with them, not on an acquisition, but on a partnership and a strategy that helps us, and, one thing that comes to mind is our expansion. You said, I think this is the last thing I wanted to comment on, which is you mentioned, you have more innovation, more work to do. Yeah, that's what keeps us going and what keeps us excited and waking up every day. I think there is so much. We just launched a line of holistic teas. There are all kinds of exotic herbs and from Tulsi to Moringa to Guayusa to bamboo leaves to cedar tips to ashwagandha, maca, all these herbs that are really good for you. And, these are working with indigenous cultures all around the world. And it's bringing these herbs that have never been brought to this country, like we did with turmeric or pu'er. They're known, but they're not really known. Now they're getting known because of what we've helped to do in building it. And a lot of people, I want to say copying us, but seeing that, hey, this is an opportunity. And then, there's a lot more distribution. I think, the Safeways and the Whole Foods and the Targets are great, but, how do you really get into the Costco's and the Walmarts and the bigger retailers that can really help us support our farmers more? More we sell, the more we can create impact. And it's not about selling out because you've sold to the big retailers. It's about growing the impact you have on the planet. And when that's your, common denominator, then it's about growth in the whole supply chain.
Yeah. I appreciate the focus on impact. So there's a lot of work to be done. The company, as the company grows, you're able to continue growing your impact. Your Numi is seen as a leader in impact. I'm curious, a number of the listeners to our podcast are involved in the B Corp community. I'm wondering if you have any comments on how you see the B Corp community in terms of as a movement around impact. Just your thoughts on the effect or the impact of the B Corp certification standard.
Yeah, I think B Corp has done an incredible job of the last 7-8 years. We're one of the founding 30 B Corp organizations, and really honored to be chosen as one of those founding groups. Jay, the founder, really targeted those companies he wanted, and he knew they would be the catalyst to help him and the vision grow. And I think B Corp has, for me, a lot of the founding companies are already B Corps in their DNA. I think today B Corp has become something a little different. It's become people that aspire to do great things. They may be doing certain things and they can expand and grow, as all of us can, even the founding ones and even the hardcore companies that are much bigger than Numi and really doing great work, whether it's a Patagonia or a Ben & Jerry's, some of those larger companies that have been known for what they're doing to the animals or the planet. So I think even today you get law firms, you get banks, you get all kinds of different organizations, that are certified B Corp. And I think I think overall it's spreading a good message. I don't know the intricacies of all these organizations and where their ratings are on the B Corp, but what it's doing is it's at least creating an industry message out there that, hey, you can do business and do good to whatever degree that is. And again, I'm not measuring each company, but I think the idea and the ethos of B Corp has put out a good message to the greater public. Is there's companies out there that really care about their employees, that care about the planet, that care about how they do business, that treat people well. So I think that's a good message that we need to know about, because there's a lot of big corporations that aren't providing as much as they can with the resources they have, and whether it's smaller companies or the large corporations, we all have that opportunity to give back in the right way to our people and to the planet and to our whole supply chain. I mean, we make these choices as founders, as CEOs, as employees, whatever level we are in a company. We make that choice to be a part of the company, and we make that choice of how we want to run that company. So I think B Corps helps us and guides us in a good direction. Their survey in becoming a B Corp really opens your eyes to all the things you can do in an organization. So, I mean, really hats off to them for the hard work they've done to get 1,000+ organizations on the B Corp, and now they're launching in Europe, and so I think they're really doing their best to spread the message of do business with good intentions.
Appreciate those insights and reflections. There's the insights that the B impact assessment gives for a company to look at wholeness is can be really helpful. When we look at Numi, we kind of see Numi already there. Like you said, you were even courted to be one of the founding B Corps. As an entrepreneur, your kind of perspective on what Numi could bring to the world, the service, was already kind of embodying the values, and so the standard is kind of affirming the questions, kind of affirming the practices you already done, and maybe you discovered a few things in there. But there is the case that there are a couple of companies and entrepreneurs who are voluntarily kind of setting the higher bar for what the total expression of what a company could be. And I kind of have a controversial question. A lot of my community in the permaculture community looks at long time horizons out into the future. And when they see a company that, say, has developed an affluent world or a North American following, and maybe is providing even something that's really wonderful, they kind of look at this question, and I already have some sense of how you're already addressing this, but the question that they ask is, if we take a multi-generational view of the future, what we want to see, for example, with the indigenous communities, the indigenous peoples of the world who have been socioeconomically marginalized or even outright oppressed, is how does a company that provides a market for goods that get exported from that region, how does a company help support the kind of the local self-reliance, that kind of the economic self-determination of people in place? So if there's people who are suffering from lack of sanitation, water, clean water, food security, so creating an income stream that is dependent upon an economic export model, and if they were a purist, they'd say, isn't that making them dependent upon the existence of the economy that tends to exploit people? Not the whole economy. There's the exceptions, like the Numis, but the economy at large tends to be a consumer, not producer kind of culture. And so there's this question that's asked, is like, how does a company like Numi, or any company, try and support local economic self-determination of people who are involved in currently producing some of those primary ingredients and supplies? And again, you've already mentioned what you're doing with water and what the foundation has done and catalyzed. But I'm curious, if you take a long time horizon, how that fits into, does Numi think about that? Just kind of curious for your reaction.
I mean, it's a complex question because, the economy is, the local economies, we're a global brand, so we distribute to over 40 countries around the world. And, we feel like just the fact that the customers buying our product, they're contributing to it and helping the whole supply chain. It's hard on the local economies, to have the impact that we'd like to have. I mean, we try and keep a lot here locally in Oakland, whether it's, people that produce packaging for us or do some co-packing for us. We try and keep and stimulate our local economy. But, it's a big question because, you're getting into the government and you're getting out of the private sector and getting into the political sector and the public sector, which, you're trying to intersect all those. And it's tough, I mean, even some of our projects, on the foundation side or on the Numi Inc. side, we still have to deal with red tape with the governments, when we're trying to do things for good for our farmers in India or China, or even here in the local educational side in Oakland. You got to go through red tape because you're dealing now with governments and you're dealing with public systems, and it's there's no straight line, and there's a lot of red tape that you might have to go through. And even on our social sustainable efforts, when we want to, like this non-GMO, verification that people are putting on their package, we had to not fight, but we had to really awaken the eyes of those people doing those verifications to say, wait, well, you're verifying tea bags that are made of this see-through material that's GMO. And do you realize that you're putting boiling water on this? And we don't want to be a part of the non-GMO verified until that's really addressed. So they did address it, and they said, oh, you're right. Anything that you're actually cooking that ingredient by putting boiling water over it, or those containers that are supposedly biodegradable, but they're made of GMO corn, you're going to microwave it, that's cooking it. So it's gotten to a point, which is great, that, people are starting to look at these things, and even B Corp, back to that, one of their big initiatives is to go to legislation and to get tax breaks for those companies that are B Corp. So it's getting now the government and the private, and the private sector to connect to help that local economy. So I think there are things that are happening, but so much of it, I don't want to say so much of it is out of our hands, but not all of it is within our control, should I say.
Most definitely. And, for the listeners that have done some of that work, I hope they can join me in thanking you, because it's oftentimes thankless work. It's to be a pioneer and to work through that red tape, setting a new pattern so that anybody who follows you has an easier time cutting through those pathways is really hard. It's challenging. And to voluntarily take that on, like you and Numi have done, is exceptional. It's not normal. And I'm grateful for the intentions and then the actual taking of it on, doing that work, cutting through the red tape, making new possibilities. I have two more kind of related questions. One is looking at the future, or even the now. I'm curious about what kind of projects you see happening, other enterprises, things that are inspiring you, that keep you lit and excited about what's possible in the emerging next economy. And the second question is, we've been talking for a few things that Numi has done. I happen to know there's a bunch of other initiatives that Numi has in place. And maybe I'll send some links out with the podcast so listeners can follow along and know more about what you're doing. But I'm curious if there's any particular initiatives that you'd like to share about, either with the foundation or with Numi itself. I'm aware of the amazing commitments that Numi is making to its employees in terms of its intentions, of some of the work that you're doing personally as a mentor in the next economy. There's a lot of things that Numi's doing, and I'm sure we could talk for a number of hours, but if you want to highlight one or two of those things. So two questions. What kind of things are maybe inspiring you, or are you looking at as reference points that you're excited about? And then the second thing, is there anything else that you'd like to share about some of the amazing things that Numi is doing?
Well, one, maybe I can combine the two because they're kind of interrelated. So I started a group about 5 years ago. I co-founded with a colleague of mine, Laura Dickinson. It's called OSC Squared, One Step Closer to an Organic Sustainable Community. And the vision of that has evolved, but it's evolved to our original vision, which is how do we bring leaders in the sustainable food world together to collaborate and drive more change to create a positive impact on the planet and people. So we brought together brands that are more emerging, not the veterans that have been doing it for 30, 50 years, but those that are doing it 10 to 20 years. Brands like Nutiva and Guayaki and Ultra Eco and Big Tree Farms and Lotus Foods. And so there's about 16 founders, CEOs in this group now. And we meet regularly to look at our own challenges as businesses and support each other. But a lot of the support is around our sustainable, social, environmental, and business issues. But how can we really help each other? And But the other ideas of this work is how do we then also become an industry sort of nucleus to help bring other businesses involved to help us drive change. So one of them is about packaging. How do we create the first home compostable, non-GMO, plant-based packaging? And now in that packaging coalition, there's over 40 brands that have joined. They're not core members of OSC, but they're part of the OSC packaging coalition. You know, and bigger brands like Seventh Generation, and even Whole Foods has joined that, or Plum, or Annie's. You know, bigger brands that, you know, collectively we make up billions of dollars of purchasing power. So that's become quite a successful coalition. We started that, you know, almost simultaneously when OSC started 5 years ago. So that's gained a lot of momentum. And now our newest initiative is called the Climate Collaborative. And how do we address the climate issues of our time? And now the whole food industry has jumped on board with that. I mean, major retailers, you know, have really come to talk to us, whether it's Target or the NCG and Infra Group, which are all the national, you know, co-ops and health food stores in the U.S. Whole Foods, bigger brands like Organic Valley and Patagonia and many others. A lot of the OSC brands, you know, like Dr. Bronner's and Guayaki and Numi have all participated. So it's becoming now the talk of the food industry. We just hosted an event in LA when we did the Natural Products Expo. You know, 500-600 people showed up to the first call to action of how do we as a food industry really look at the climate issues. And we've created 9 themes in which people can make commitments. It's from agriculture to food waste to energy to transportation. You know, all of these, there's 9 different themes, and people are making commitments for their organizations of how they will address this within their company to reduce their carbon emissions, to be carbon neutral, to be, you know, so it's been really rewarding to see, and just, you know, incredible honor to see all these organizations come together for this call to action of how do we as a food industry address the climate issues. So that's kind of been a part of this. The other part is, you know, we're creating something called Rising Stars in OSC, and we're bringing younger entrepreneurs that the OSC core members can mentor and can support. You know, and these are companies, let's say under 10 million, that need help, but they have great values, from organics to sustainability to fair trade. Whatever their values are, they obviously have to fall within OSC criterias. And we're there to help them grow their business and become the next leaders in the sustainable food industry. So that's been emerging as of late. And then me personally, you know, I do work with a lot of younger companies. I mentor, I advise, I'll sit on some boards, both for-profit and NGOs, when the time is right and when it really fits my personal values, which are similar to OSC, you know, on running a healthy business. So those are some of the things that come to mind there, that how can we collaborate, because collaboration is so important, and get ourselves out of our silos, you know, both on an individual level and an organizational level, and really support each other, whether it's to help our business grow or to help the whole industry and the food industry grow and do good things. And at the end of the day, what this does is just talks to the customer more. So that when somebody's shopping for a product, they see a collective that are doing good things, and they say, I want to be a part of that. Similar to B Corp, you know, that they're aligned, they're doing something good out there.
I love that.
Yeah, you can go to osc2.org to learn more if you want.
Great, and we'll put that link with the podcast as it goes out. I really appreciate your dedication and commitment to your values, to innovation. And I think there's this underlying theme of kind of like hospitality and making people feel comfortable and invited. Even this call to collaboration that you co-initiated, all of those, what does it mean to invite people in? There's so much going on in today's world, so much suffering and so many problems. And there's a lot of people who are taking the attitude of pointing out what's wrong, but it takes a lot of courage and insight and a empathetic kind of perspective, I think, to invite people in as if you were inviting them into your home for a cup of tea. And your whole business and your constellation of activities that have been built around Numi kind of have that invitation kind of built in, which I'm really vibing on right now. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with Next Economy Now listeners? Ahmed, I really appreciate the time you've taken to share with us. And again, just really grateful for your great work.
No, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate the opportunity and this chance to share our story and what we're doing. And I think, the last thing you said really resonates is, hospitality and welcoming is so important, not just in tea as a culture. Tea has ceremonies all over the world. And it's about sitting together and creating space and working together. But, it's also my culture from where I come from. It's about being a community. And I think people need community more than ever right now. I think whatever your political stance is in the world, I know that's just dividing us more. How do we come together as people and as hearts and share and connect and have common goals to do things better for the people and the planet that surround us, because that's what we've come into and that's what we go out into. So how can we do more and do it better? So yeah, I think that really resonates, that hospitality and creating community, because I think in today's time it's I think the most important thing.
Next Economy Now is a production of Lift Economy. To listen to all of our episodes, go to lifteconomy.com/podcast. That's LIFT economy.com/podcast. You can also sign up for our monthly newsletter at lifteconomy.com/newsletter. Please also rate and review our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.